right now I'm going to hand over to Leonardo, who's prepared a really cool demo of front ends and called Design, which is made immense leaps. Immense leaps.
No, I'm not going to be talking about that.
Bait and switch again.
I'll be talking about design skills in general.
Okay.
And Cloud Code Design is interesting. David was pretty excited about it. Then I told him about pencil.dev, and he got really excited. We're still waiting for him to do an article, and I'm eagerly awaiting that. That's kind of for interactive Figma-like user interface. In fact, both of those things were called Figma killers, where you can integrate design work with a graphical user interface with the actual development. What I'm going to be talking about is kind of the opposite of that, which is how to create good design if you're not a designer. A lot of sites that were vibe coded looked vibe coded last year. You know, they all had purple gradients. They all had these cards. They had these predictable visual elements that were like visual AI slop. People came to recognize them like an M dash or like delve or like a negative parallelism. It's not this, it's that, you know, but in a visual sense. So a lot of cliche styles that were just overrepresented in the training data and not really grounded on good design principles. So fortunately, a lot of this has improved due to skills. So recently I gave a workshop on agent skills and mentioned this NPX skill, which I did not recommend because it does this. I mean, it's useful for us to consume this information. This is a ranking of downloads of these skills. You can see some of them are in the hundreds of thousands or millions. Why I didn't recommend is just because I don't want telemetry installed just to add to their metrics, right? So this is how they're determining these rankings, is because people are installing it like that. You can just install skills by telling your agent to install a skill. But so what's interesting when we look at the top skills here, we've got front-end design by Anthropic, and that's where some confusion came in, is that this was a skill that Anthropic developed called front-end design that greatly reduced the visual slop factor. This was then taken by an organization and a product called Impeccable, and they created a suite of skills that you can see somewhere in here. Impeccable itself, like a polish and critique and audit. So these are like different kinds of skills that are part of a good front-end design. So it is really powerful to just tell your agent, install the Impeccable and point them to the repo. Wrong repo. If you go to impeccable.style, I'm ruining all my surprises here, you'll see the information of that skill. And like just installing the skill alone, just a single prompt saying install this skill, like you have a GitHub repo link, so you can paste that into your agent. That will totally transform the visual interface of your site. And so these are different kinds of commands that they have. They have a whole interactive flow, and there's like all kinds of ways to use this explicitly. But the great thing about skills, as I mentioned in my workshop, is they can be used implicitly without you knowing the exact syntax or the name of the skill or the name of the function within the skill. Just if it's loaded into the context and discoverable through progressive disclosure, your harness will be able to make use of the skill and understand the patterns and the anti-patterns. So there have been a few other skills that I've found along the way, including one that was called Make Interfaces Feel Better, that has been very useful for improving the visual quality of skills. In fact, what I did was I made a list of these skills, and I prompted Codex to say, hey, give me a single page application with good visual style that uses these skills and explains the skills. The image gen skill also makes use of GPT image 2 to generate images, and it made me the site. So I'll show it here. So this is the site that was created in a couple minutes with a single prompt that explains some of the concepts that I wanted to highlight. There are some things that I'm learning that maybe people know about, but they're new to me. And it's interesting because I've been doing web development since the late 90s, like the very beginning of the web. And there are still new things coming out. I just learned about OKLCH, which is a whole new other way of managing colors in a way that is better than RGB or than hex colors. So this is the latest, most modern way of managing colors in a way that keeps the brightness between colors more standard. So it's good to know about that. There's this thing called tokens that are design tokens. They're a way of communicating standards for design elements throughout your sites. And you don't have to learn all this stuff explicitly, it's just good for you to even just know these terms, because they are part of the new web. They're part of the new technologies for front-end interfaces, and that skills and the libraries use them under the hood. So Impeccable, as I mentioned, is kind of absolutely the best suite of skills that I found for UI design. And I'm going to basically briefly go through some of these things. So Impeccable, it supplies the taste and the anti-patterns and gives guidance to how to create a site. So there's a lot of ways to use it explicitly, as I showed you, tons of commands, tons of functions that you don't have to be a designer. You don't have to be a front-end developer. You can just install the skill and you get kind of defaults. You get out of the box best practices. I also mentioned, or Stan also mentioned, DESIGN.md, which I had shared at some point when Google announced it a few days ago. This is an open standard for communicating design decisions, and it is a document, just like we have at agents.md. It starts with front matter, and it has tokens, and it has basically a description of what the main theme is for the site. It's not an extensive CSS definition. It's just kind of the definition of these are the colors, these are the site theme definitions, and then there's a justification, the actual description of the why. So it gets beyond just kind of saying, this is that and this is that, like a key value. It goes into talking about this is the feel, or this is the justification, this is the idea behind it. And this helps with agents that are developing the site, adding new things to it, because they help to keep a consistent look and feel. What's really interesting is that they have import and export from your existing design. So you don't have to generate that design.md by hand. You just tell your agent, hey, implement this, export or write my design from this, and then you have your design, and that's like your instructions for your other agents to then use that design. They have a linter, which is really interesting, because then you can detect design violations like you would type violations in a typed programming language. It's a really fascinating concept to lint your site for design inconsistencies or for lack of best practices. So let's see, I previously run a lint. So here, this ran the lint through npx at google/design.md lint. So that's and then design.md. That is the command you would use to lint your site design. And if you're good, then you're going to pass with 0 errors and 0 warnings. So wait, that's the grand finale. Here we go. So that's design.md. What's interesting is that Impeccable creates a design.md, and they are almost 100% in alignment. There's just one place that Google is lagging, and that is what I mentioned, OKLCH colors. But there is a pull request, there's an issue, there's support by the developers. This was raised 2 weeks ago, so I think this is going to get merged soon, and it will be 100% aligned. In the meantime, you can just tell your agent to kind of align with this standard, and it will not have OKLCH colors on the front matter tokens, but it will use them under the hood. Some implementation details, but important to know about, because as I mentioned, this is super emerging stuff, but it's going to become kind of the new standards of the front-end development. All right, so that's basically Impeccable and design.md. Together, they make the output reviewable. So I mentioned design.md can be linted and diffed and exported, and then Impeccable can use that to critique, adapt, polish. Those were some of the skills that I showed you. So those are kind of operations that the Impeccable skill suite can do based on the design specification. Again, you don't have to be a mechanic to take advantage of this. You can just drive the car, but this is how it works under the hood, and it's very powerful because it's a new emerging design language and standard that allows your agents to establish best practices, create a theme, and adhere to it, and make sure that there isn't a design drift, or violations throughout the development of your site. So there's a bunch of skills, the ones that I noted here in my initial prompt, and they were used to create this page, and I told it to kind of explain what these things are, right? So I already talked about Impeccable. It creates the product.md and the design.md that have the definitions of your design. It rejects the common anti-patterns, and it uses kind of a specific theme. It can be used interactively to define what that theme should be, but it also creates some good defaults. As I mentioned, that evolved from the front-end design skill that Anthropic originally created that has some aesthetic best practices instead of kind of the neutral, vibe-coded, purple gradient feel that a lot of last year's sites would have. You look at a lot of even like startup web pages that, where vibe coded, they all kind of have the same look and feel. This is kind of the first salvo to combat that. I mentioned make interfaces feel better. This adds, different things like optical alignment. This is an interesting thing. If you go to the site there, they talk about some of these things like things that maybe are not explicit. Like I couldn't actually tell the difference. Then I realized, oh, it's the word wrapping, right? So look at how to evenly distribute words. And there's all kinds of things that, especially to a non-designer, these things are not explicit. These things are not intuitive, but they affect readability. They affect aesthetics. They affect usability. And there are experts that have devoted their lives to these kinds of human-computer interface and user experience. And they have created these skills so that we don't have to be experts. All we have to do is say, hey, install this skill, and install make interfaces feel better, and we benefit from standing on the shoulders of giants for things like that. I mentioned the image gen. If you're using Codex and you actually probably can use this with Claude Code too, as long as you have some interface to connect with OpenAI API for the GPT Image 2. This is an amazing image model. For those of you that haven't played with it, it's better than Nano Banana Pro. It is now like the best image generation model, so it's a good thing to experiment with. But so this is a skill to help with generating those images. Quality, we've got a web design guidelines that looks at semantic HTML. That means that your HTML tags have meaning inherent in the tags themselves. Being able to have focus states and good image dimensions. One of these skills reduced my generated image from I think it was like a 25 megabyte. I don't know if it was in the output or if it was in the reasoning traces. A 2.5 megabyte PNG to a 172K WebP. So these are the kinds of usability and performance things that are good to have as part of your web design guidelines. User interface wiki that is related to motion and typography, interactions, content handling, accessibility, which is especially important for educational products. There are certain standards. This is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines or international standards to make sure that it's perceivable, operable, understandable, and it works with assistive technology. Speed, there's a Core Web Vitals skill that looks at different components. It's not very good contrast. I'd probably iterate on that, but this is called the largest contentful paint. It measures when the main visible content finishes reading. IMP, which is the interaction to next paint, which is how quickly the page responds to user input, and CLS, which is the cumulative layout shift, which measures unexpected movement in the page layout. So these are all very technical performance things related to quality that are all inherent in this Core Web Vitals skill. So that generates fast images, stable layout, cheap interactions. And then finally, React best practices. If you're using React for your SPA, it is a very complex library. It's kind of like a framework. There's a lot of ways to do things suboptimally. And there is a skill that helps to encode a lot of the best practices to avoid re-renders, which can really do performance penalties or heavy client work. And so do things that will allow for a good, small, single-page application. So I'll share all these links in the chat later, all the skills. It's a great thing to do to basically either globally on your home directory skills or in a per repo basis, which would be more portable if there are several developers working on the same site to install these skills. And again, because of the implicit use, you don't have to even know how to use them. You don't have to be an expert, but just having those skills present are going to dramatically increase the quality of your user interfaces. They're going to definitely change the look and feel, give it an art direction, tinted paper, generated hero image, as I did here, the full width bands, annotated rows, semantic landmarks, the explicit image dimensions, little explanations. This is just kind of explaining how it used the skills for this page. This is kind of meta and self-referential, but that's kind of what I wanted to do. It gave me some speaker notes that I did not follow at all. And that's basically it. I wanted to give a demo of how to use all these amazing skills to transform your user interfaces and to learn about some of these new things that are emerging, like design tokens, OKLCH for colors, and DESIGN.md standard.